Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today's video is all about my favorite, I call them essential supplies for coloring. Now, does this mean that you need all of these things on every project? Nope. Does it mean that you need them on any project? Nope. Really, all you need is a medium to color and a page to color. That's it. But I'm going to show you some things that make my life either easier or just a little more fun to play around with. So there's about 15 of them, so let's see what they are. Okay, so first up is my Swatch Binder. Guys, this keeps me sane. So in my Swatch Binder, I have every colored pencil swatched out. So here's my Brute Furner Squares. Here's all the Black Widows. Here's my Neocolor. Here, Mark Art, Neocolor 2. So what I like about these is I put these in these little sheet protectors. So I can just pop them out and carry them with me wherever I'm coloring, or even if I'm coloring here at my desk, I can just seal this up, take this binder away, and now I just have this and I prop it up next to me to where I can look at it at a glance. This keeps me sane. So let's kind of talk about how it works. I'm going to take it out of the plastic so that you don't have all the shiny in it. Now there's a whole video on my channel about this, but essentially all of these have a number, 1 through, I have 96 Neocolor 2s, which is more than you can currently buy, but this is probably my oldest medium. I've been using these for years and love them. So then they each have the name and the number of the, whether it's a pencil, whether it's the Neocolor, whatever. Then in a binder, we're going to play the zoom in, zoom out game. I have my cases, right? They're all labeled just with a simple paper tag with twine and a marker, Neocolor 2s. All of my pencils are like this, my ink tints are like this. Anything that'll fit in the case, I put it in a case. Now, these fit two to a little thing. Mostly with pencils, it's 3 to a case. And I do recommend that you number up at the top. It makes them easier to put away. But then when I'm looking at my swatch chart and I'm doing my project and I say, oh, I need vermilion. That's the color right there that I'm looking for. I can go to my number, it's number 10. I can come here, it's number 10, pull it out, and I have vermilion. Now what's so fantastic about this is now I have a bunch of them sitting here on the side of my desk that I used, and I go to put it away and I see 10 and I just simply put it back in its slot for 10. I don't have to put them away each time. I don't have to put them away in some random order. Most of my stuff is in color family order. These are a little different, but these, I do have free swatch charts for you guys if you're interested. They're on my Ko-fi shop. There's a link in the description. But this is essential for me. I can't live without this system. To me, looking at these two pencils, or these two, well, I'll pick two that are near each other on the swatch chart so you can see what I'm talking about. So 26 and 27. Looking at those two, they look very different swatched out. You can see that 27 is a much browner olive. It's an olive brown, and this is an actual olive. to me, when I look at this, it still looks green to me. I would think it would be closer to something like this or even that. So seeing it swatched out really helps me a lot. This system is probably my #1 thing. And I kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone because let's talk about the Neo colors. They're on my list too. They're water soluble pencils. Look at them. I think this kind of sepia is a little smaller. You can see that I've used that quite a bit. My guess is I probably broke that one because I have literally used these for years, but it takes no pigment to use these, hardly. They're extremely pigmented, and the entire crayon is pigmented. So while they are not the cheapest to buy, you can buy them open stock, so you can build up slowly, but I highly recommend them. The only one I don't recommend is the silver. The silver's trash. You can see I need to just throw it away. But it's very hard, and I don't know why it's like that. It's the only one that I have that's like that. And it is a very old pencil or crayon or whatever you want to call these. But this is definitely on my top 10. And while we're talking, when I edit, I'll try and throw up at least 1 or 2 pencils where I've used Neo Color 2s in the backgrounds, because that's where it really shines. But I also colored in an entire Gnome Sweet Gnome page using these and using alcohol marker, a colorless blender like this, to activate it, and it worked. Okay, next up is my Inktense pencils. These are another medium that I absolutely adore, and I'm actually counting this separate from colored pencils because they are actually Indian ink, and they do have a little bit of a learning curve, and I did expand to where I have all 100 now. But I've had these for quite a while, and they really put out a lot of pigment, and they're just fun to work with. They're kind of like a watercolor, but you don't have to worry about your color lifting as much. These are also great for backgrounds, and I'll try and throw up a couple of art pieces that I did using these. Next up is my Tombow collection. I had, I don't know, several sets of these that I've had for quite a while, and then they went on sale, and I can't remember, I think it might have been for my birthday or right around then, and they went on sale, and I bit the bullet and I got the rest of them and filled out this marker case. These are a brush tip marker. They're water-based. These are the best markers I've found for not going through pages. So I would go to my cheap Mandela book or other book, and I would test these. And if used correctly and lightly, like you can't work super slow because the paper will absorb them and it will start to bleed through. But in something like a Kirby book or a Joanna's book, you're just not going to have the problems with it bleeding through. Whereas some of the cheaper brands you can. Now, they are going to be a little bit streaky, so a lot of times I use these for a base, and sometimes I use them over the top of other mediums. But they do have a brush tip on one side and a bullet nib on the other. And look at all the beautiful colors. Now, this case actually kind of expands. Zoom you out, zoom you in. But this expands. I, at some point, am most likely going to give this case to my mom. I want to find her some markers and so that she can use, and I'll probably put mine in those binders because I just really like the cases and I'd like to be able to number these and swatch them out. I have them swatched, but you got to keep them in the right order, and I'm not a big fan of trying to put the number on the very top of the pencil. I just have found over the years that that doesn't work as well for me because they tend to fall off eventually. But I'm going to be using these quite a bit more going forward in 2024. So next on my list are my Posca pens. Now I have the colors. So I have a whole little set of colors here. And I do use them. But these are the two I use the most. There's an ivory for when you don't want a really stark highlight. And I use the white. I use the black, but I'm probably going to buy the black in a finer tip because what I find I want the black for is like the dots of animals' eyes, maybe going over a line that I've colored over with colored pencil. And in my experience, these fine liners like these, which are great, really don't do well over waxy surfaces. So I'm probably going to get a Posca pen in a fine liner. But love these. Use them on probably every project. Next up, Wink of Stella and Nouveau Shimmer. Both of these are just a little bit of a gloss or a glitter that go over what you've colored that add that little shimmery something. So here's the thing. There are some pages where I absolutely adore using stickles and glitter and fun. And then there's other pages where I really don't want that. For example, my Kanoko Agusa, I used this like on the wings of the little character in the Halloween 2-page spread I did because I didn't really want it to be the focal point of the page. I don't want the glitter to like just jump right out at you, right? Let me grab my Kirby book. So on this page, if you look at these wings, can you see how that just shimmers a little bit in the light for the wings? But when you look at the page as a whole, it's not like, whoa, in your face. Looking at it, I was like, is this even the right one? But yeah, it really is. And then this is Sparkle Pop right here on the antenna. And I really like Sparkle Pop as well for glitter. But I just like the subtle yet glimmery effect that you get from Wink of Stella. Next up, I like these Pentel Aqua brush markers or water brushes. That's what they're called. I really like this one. Now, I've got quite a few. I've got some Arteza ones, and I have this Kuretake, and it's a good one too. But quite often, I just always kind of go back to this one. I feel like it's my tried and true, works every time. I do like the concept behind this pen. I find, I don't know if you can tell, but I just get more water. Do you see the difference in my hand? Try and maybe on paper would be better. See how wet that is? Whereas with the same number of strokes, it's wet, it's damp, but it's not anywhere near. Like, you can see where I started to seep through the paper. This is just copy paper. I just find I get a little better control with the Pentel. With the Arteza, it's a little more watery, which might be a good thing, depending on what you're doing. But I find with adult coloring, I really reach for this Pentel a lot. Next on my list is this Derwent battery operated eraser. This thing is amazing. It's got the replaceable nibs, so this can be replaced. And then you just push it back in there. It snaps in. It's battery operated. These batteries last a really, really long time. And I've had this one for literally years. Probably 10. I mean, I'm just speculating, but I would say probably 10. Really fantastic. Let's talk about pens. These are glaze pens. Now these have a shiny, they come with a little like wax nib thing on them. But I don't know, we'll try and see if you can see that on video. We'll let that dry for a second. This is what I like to use for animal eyes and things that you want to look wet. Because even when it dries, it's going to dry with a little bit of a gloss. So, there you can see it. And there's 16 pens in here in various colors. And I had a set for years and years and years and was missing a couple of pens, and these were on sale, so I grabbed them. Next on my list is this Caran d'Ache, I think it's called a Fulbright Blender pencil. I just get this on Amazon, and I think that this works amazingly well. If you want to see it in action, if you watch any of the Matchstick Mouse Pumpkin Party project that I did where I colored the entire Pumpkin Party book, I used it on every single page at the end, and I do show it in sped up, but you can see the before and after if you look. I think it's amazing. Now, there are times when I want to use something else, like I like Gamsol and I like Zest It. And both of those, depending on where you live, are better suited for certain types of projects. This is probably not something, like if you were to do a whole page, you may want to consider using something like a Gamsol or the Zest It, just simply because you're basically kind of burnishing with this. You don't have to lay it down super hard, but you have to apply some pressure to it. So, but I really like the effects I get with it, so I do use it often. Next up is the white pencil. So these are the three that I use the most. Probably you can tell I use Prismacolor a lot. It is a fantastic, very opaque white pencil. But I also picked up the Derwent Drawing Chinese White and the Luminance White. Both of these are fantastic whites, very opaque, and sometimes you just need a little bit of white pencil, whether it's for blending purposes or whether it's you want to pop a white, but you don't want the starkness of using something like a Posca pen. So these are my three go-tos for that. Okay, next up is this little Carousel. I bought this a few months back to just kind of help keep me organized. It's a little lower here in the front and a little higher in the back. I keep my watercolor or my water brushes, just random pens, my gel pen, a stylus, my eraser, some scissors, colorless blender, glue, mono eraser, my Wink Stella, another like a paintbrush. I usually have my ivory and my white Posca, which I just talked about, so I set them aside. I have a kneadable eraser, my blender. I usually have this pencil in there, and my little tweezers. Anything that I use on a regular basis kind of goes in here, and I really, it's on a little spinner, and I just keep it right here off to the side, and I find it extremely helpful. So let's talk about pencil sharpeners. I really like this one. It's ZMOL battery pencil sharpener. I like it because it's battery operated. It's super small, so you can see fits in my palm. It's very easy to clean and access the blades. It comes with extra blades, and it's just super easy to use. And so here's my luminance pencil. It will not fit in there. Luminance are fat pencils. They're like some of the Derwent like ink tints are also fat pencils, so they're not going to fit in there very well. But something like a Prismacolor, they just fit in really nice, and look at the sharp point you can get. Am I in the light? There we go. You can just get a really nice point on them, and if you look, you get the nice shavings, so it doesn't grind your pencils up. So it's not perfect if you have a lot of these fatter kind of pencils. Now when I'm sitting at my desk here, I use my Doll 133. But you can see you get the same kind of point with the Doll 133. Now the Doll is adjustable, so you can adjust your pencil sharpness, but I like a pencil that starts out really sharp. So those are my two recommendations. I love this one because it's easy to use on my couch, and if I go on a trip, it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It's all self-contained. I also I bought this sharpener and I really like it a lot. It's called Wet n Wild, and I bought it in the makeup section, but it too has the ability to do even the fattest pencils. It'll really get in there. But what I like is that, let's say you have a pencil and you don't necessarily need it sharpened. You just want that really pointy point. You can go in and just barely stick your pencil in there, and you can get that wicked fine point without, eating your whole pencil. So I really like that. See, I can get a super duper point if I need it, but they're messy. Just warning you. But sometimes you want something like that. That's just simple, easy to use, you know, maybe you're traveling and you don't even have the space for something like this, you can just grab that little one. Well, speaking of the mess I just made, that's how my brain works. I wasn't speaking about it, but my brain was. I have this makeup brush. It's like a powder brush or whatever. I call it my floofer. But it's great for just getting rid of that, you know, the crumbs. So get yourself something like this. That way you are not smearing pigment into your pages. And I really like that. Next on my list are these tags. And let me grab these. These are the other tags that I bought at the same time. What I like about both of these is they're repositionable. And so I tag when I color something. So this makes it easy for me as a creator to keep track of when I did what. And as I'm going through the book, I have that information available, and on the little circle I have the what pencils I use. So on this one I used Cezanne pencils because over time I forget which pencils I use for each project. But what's really nice is this peels off and leaves no sticky residue at all, and I can just pop it back in. Same with these. These peel right off. They don't take up any of the colored pencil, and I can remove these if I need to, you know, but it really helps keep me on track. Now, you may not have a need for this at all, but I really like it because it keeps me organized. So another product that I really like working with is watercolor, like handmade. When I want something kind of glittery, shimmery, this is one of the ways that I find I really enjoy getting it. So this is from IUILE. I have no idea. But if you look at these colors on white, they don't look great unless they're in the right light. So you get them in the right light and you're like, oh, those are beautiful. In the wrong light, they look murky. On black, they look fantastic always, which is why I'm excited about the Lafranc enamel paint, because it's such a perfect black to then add these little shimmers. And they come in these little, I think these are quarter pans, or maybe they're called buttons. I'm not sure. I'm not really well assessed. These I've had for a couple of years. I use them a fair bit. But you can see I just got these little sample ones, and I've also used those, and they go a long way. A project that I use these in is the World Within Worlds, my dragon page. So, do you see in the light the color shift? See how it goes like almost purple and then into the turquoise? They just are so beautiful and well worth the money. You can buy them individually. I got a good sale. She was running a sale when I bought them. You'll notice a theme here. I do tend to try and buy things when they're on sale, but I know that you can get just each of these colors, and they have numbers on them. These are magnetic, but they have a little number on them, so you can just buy individual colors if you want. This was her shift, and like I said, I probably paid it was under $100 They're normally like 150 bucks for a whole thing of these, but they last a really long time. So all this stuff is an investment, and I understand when I first started doing art, I couldn't afford anything like this. And so I bought Koi, and I bought, you know, the Winka Stella pen, and I made do. I bought stickles and Mod Podge and things like that. But I will say that sometimes you can ask for certain things, maybe have a couple of people go in on something for a birthday, buy the smaller size, get the sample packs. These are a great way to see if you enjoy working with them. This West End by Renaissance Colors, these are also really nice, and these were not nearly as much. Because they're just the little samples. But look how beautiful they are. They just have such a beautiful shimmer to them. Okay, next on my list, I have been using distressed inks and oxides for a lot of years. So, this is a medium that I've been collecting forever. So, here you have the inks and the oxides, and you can tell a little bit of the difference if you look. Your oxides have almost a little bit of a duller look to them than your distressed inks. Distressed inks are more translucent, and your oxides are more opaque. Now, what's great about the oxides is you can... So like if I were to mix Rusty Hinge, my orange, with this Blueprint Sketch or Faded Jeans, orange and blue make brown, right? So if I were to use a distress ink and then let it dry, and then I were to use the distress ink orange over the blue, it would make a brown color no matter what. With distress oxide, one of the properties of oxides is that if you do your blue and you allow it to dry and you put the orange on it, the orange will stay orange on the blue. They don't, as long as you let them dry, you can layer them. You're never going to be able to do that with the distress inks. They're translucent and they just don't have those same kind of properties. Also, I find oxides easier to get smooth gradient blends, which I can get them with the inks as well. It just has a little bit more forgiveness or tolerance with the oxides. They're a little creamier, and so they just blend a little better. It's kind of like, if you want to think of this as, these are the polychromos of the world, and these are the Prismacolor. These are a little more smushy blendy. These are a little more translucent layer. But that being said, they each are fantastic, and I use them for different things. But, and I use these blending brushes to blend them. And this is what they come like in the larger size. They also have the little squares, which I would probably recommend if you were starting out to get those, because less of a footprint. And I probably would have went that way, but I started collecting these long before they had those little cute squares. They just didn't have them when I started collecting. So by the time you get literally half of this collection and then they bring out the little squares, I wasn't gonna start over. I like keeping them all together. I like having them all matchy-matchy. Maybe that sounds crazy, but it's just one of those things. And then Tim Holtz puts out a few, I don't know, something like 3 a year or something like that, if that tells you how long I've been collecting. but I use one set of these brushes for the oxides and the other one for the inks because I don't like to mix the two. However, I use this for all of my aqua type of tones. I just simply go in and you can see that I didn't get any color down. So I can use it with any, you know, I could go in with, this is my, I could go in with my ink now and blend it. The oxides have a little bit, the actual opaqueness or whatever, you can feel it in the brush. So periodically you can just take these in and wash them, but I don't wash them after every use. In fact, I very rarely wash them. They do take a long time to dry, so this isn't something that you wash them and then use them that same, probably not even the same day. You might, if it was like wash them in the morning and it's warm out and you come back in the afternoon, but this isn't something like 15 minutes later they're dry. They take a while to dry, but I like using the brushes. I also have the little daubers and different things. I've tried a bunch of different things over the years, but this is something that I really enjoy working on the background. And let's see, one of the backgrounds would be, zoom me out a little bit. Okay, so I used Distress Oxides on this background. I wrote Distress ink, but this is definitely an oxide, and I used Prismacolor pencils, but you can tell that it has a little more muted look to it and a matte look to it. I really like that. I like how this page turned out quite a bit. That being said, maybe you prefer the distressings can be a little more vibrant. Next on my must-have is this Scotch Super Hold. This is the best tape that I have found for your pencils. If you use the numbering system like I do, here's one. You can see where it just starts to peel a little bit. Okay, so what I do to fix this is I just peel off a little bit, just enough to get the scrape off. And I just take a little bit of this Super Hold and I go around. And it's perfectly flawless now, except for I got a little hair in there. But it's a little bit shiny, which I don't mind, but it does a fantastic job of holding onto it and it won't peel back ever again. Okay, next up on the list is pastels. So I have some really cheap Mungio pastels. Now, even though they're very inexpensive, they're a great pastel, and they're perfect for backgrounds. You get a nice soft look. They come in these little sticks. And they last a really long time. And there's different techniques that you can use to use these. And I really like these. So this is a set that I do recommend, and I think this whole set, it's like $64. At least when I bought it, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $10. So very inexpensive. On the opposite end are the pan pastels. Now these are an artist grade quality. The Mungios are a student grade, but these are artist grade and they are highly pigmented and they work like a dream. Now I bought this set a long time ago and you can see, even though I've used these, I know sometimes you guys think I probably don't, but while I haven't used, like, I don't think I've used the red, Most of these I have used, and they just go a really long way because they are so pigmented. But they come with a price tag, so these are more expensive. Now you can buy the little sets of like 6. You don't need all the colors. They mix and blend really well together. So I would suggest, if you want to try these out, we all have our favorite go-to colors, especially for backgrounds. Maybe you want them to help you with something like water scenes or sky backgrounds. So then you could just get a couple of the blues. And they do have these in themes, so like nature theme or water theme or whatever. But there's quite a variety of these, and I really enjoy working with them. But to me, they're very much like the Neocolor 2s in that you get what you pay for, and this is an investment that will last you a lifetime. I guarantee, unless you are literally using them every single day for bigger pieces of art, this will last a lifetime. Now, by no means am I saying you have to get these. I'm just saying that if you do, you can buy them open stock or in the little sets. They're usually cheaper if you can buy a set. So I saved up and I would you can buy them in these trays, but each one is its own little, oh man, packaging, we're friends. So each one of these comes like this, right? But they screw into each other. And then somewhere I have the lids for the one lid or whatever. They all have their name and their numbers on the back, so that's fantastic. But they usually sell these like in a little set of 6, and then you can buy these trays individually, or you can actually buy them as a set in a tray like this. And then they have the bigger trays that hold like 20 or something like that. So if you can afford it, if you enjoy working with the pastels in the background, especially if you have hand issues, these are something where you can cover a big piece of landscape in your background very quickly and very opaquely with beautiful results. So that is not my essential, but it is a medium that I really enjoy. But I've also used the Mungio with success as well. And I'll pop up a little bunny picture that I did with and it's on the channel showing how to use these. Okay, the last thing on my list is a Workable Fixative. I think that everyone should have one of these, a can. It doesn't have to be Krylon. My last one was Grumbacher, and I even showed you on the base of the can how old it was. This one I just got, but this is going to do a couple of things. One, I use it in my Disney book. These pages are so smooth that what I did was I went in and I sprayed every single one of these with a Workable Fixative. It adds I was hoping you'd be able to see it, but just ever so slightly, it adds a little bit of a tooth to the paper. It's not like suddenly it's going to become Spring Hill Bristol, so don't get excited. It's not that great, but it does help. And then when you do use something like a pastel, like any type of pastel, whether it's the oil pastel or the dry pastel, I recommend that you use a fixative over it. Now you can use a final fixative, but once you use a final fixative, then if you ever decide that you want to add another layer, you can't. Whereas with the workable fixative, you can. So I don't really see a downside to using a workable fixative because it seals it in completely, just like a final fixative, only it gives you the option to always be able to go back in. And I like to use these to give my paper a little more tooth. Also, if you messed up and you burnished a little too soon, you can try using a little workable fixative. Now, I do recommend that you get used to working with these. Test, let's say that you do a page that you've, spent hours and hours on. I would have already tested this using the pencils that you use. I have personally never had a problem with spraying something and having it like make my pencils run or anything like that. I have sprayed it over Albrecht Dürer, which are watercolor pencils and are reactive. I've sprayed it over Inktense. I haven't had any sort of problem with that. Neocolor 2s, any of it. But I do always, I do recommend that you test. But that being said, you have to use it properly. You can't spray it too close. You need to, I think it's 12 to 15 inches. Most things are. It says it dries in 10 to 15 minutes. I will say this, I have rushed it. So with my watercolor, I use this to seal my pages in my Albrecht Dürer, my Bunny Book of Thoughts. And I was in a hurry and I wanted to spray all the pages at once. So I would spray and I would let it set like 2 minutes. And then I would move to the next page. The problem with doing that with a wet medium like Albrecht Dürer watercolor is that it is reactive. And so when I sprayed and didn't allow for it to dry, when I shut the book and it touched that wet, not dry page, it made little tiny spots, not enough that I don't even know if someone else would notice it, but I did. It made just an ever so light smudge. And I know it's my own gosh dang fault for being so impatient because, I am, because I can't help myself. But that being said, use it properly. It's going to work fantastic. All right. So that's my 20. I'd really love to hear what your 20 are, or your 10, or whatever you feel like sharing. And guys, there's no right or wrong answers in all of this. I haven't mentioned alcohol markers, or gel pens, or glitter pens, or little tools such as just having your Gamsol in a small little container so that you're not opening up your whole big jar. I mean, the list goes on and on of things that we could talk about, but I thought as a beginner, these are some of the things that are available to you. I do have videos on most of these products on how, a little more in depth on how to use them. If you don't find what you're looking for, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to do a video for you. And going forward, I'm going to have some polls and I'm going to have different things that we're going to be doing this upcoming year. Possibly working, committing to working out of one book. Not to say I won't work out of other books, because I certainly will. But maybe committing at least one project a month out of a specific book so that, I've had some requests for that. So we can throw up a couple of different options for books and see if, what book you would like to do that in. I would be very open to that. So be thinking of that going forward, and I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous day. And I am going to be doing a separate video talking about colored pencils specifically. So I know I didn't mention those in this, but I feel like that's its own, that's a full-blown video in itself. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.